Hi guys. So I'm normally not a hater, especially when it comes to books. But today I'm feeling a bit like a hater because I have read 100 books in 2023 and most of them were like fine or really good. But today we're going to talk about the bottom of the bottom. And I mean the books that still haunt me in my sleep, keep me up at night because of how terrible they were. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I don't know why I'm holding these because I haven't read any of these, but we're going to talk about the books that I did read and absolutely hated. So, starting off really strong, this is the first book I read this year, or last year, I should say, and that is Normal People. And don't get me wrong, I know many of you like this, but this was the most awful book I've ever read in my entire life. I'm sorry, what was this? There was no plot. The characters were awful. The relationship was even more awful. They did have quite a few quotes that were quite beautiful, I should say that, but other than that, this was horrible. This book still keeps me up at night. I still think about it, I think once a week at minimum, because of how bad this book was. So basically, this has no plot. I'm just gonna say that. It has absolutely no plot, just characters. And that is for me already something that I'm like, not a fan. But this book is about Marianne and Connor, and they are like two teenagers when the book starts. And Connor is like popular, Marianne isn't. And like the entire time, Connor's like, she's too good for me. Marianne is like, he's too good for me. They can't stop telling each other like, oh, you're too good for me, oh, you're too good for me, oh. But then they fuck everything up. So basically, one time she gets kind of assaulted, I think. It was really sad, and he wants to step up, but he doesn't because he's ashamed for her. That is the first thing. I'm like, what? And then they kind of fight each other, but then they're like, oh, you're too good for me, oh, you're too good for me. They break up, they fight each other again a couple of years later, and then he's like, oh, I love her, but how can I tell her? And he doesn't tell her and just leaves. And then they fight each other again, and they once again don't communicate. And it's so frustrating, and it still haunts me to this day. I absolutely despise this book. If I could buy all copies, put it somewhere, light it up and see it get on fire, maybe then I would feel satisfied, because this book took way too much of me for what it has done, and I'm still pissed about it. So my most hated book of the year is Normal People. Then I also why do I make these videos? Oh my god. Then I started reading Jack, and I should have looked at the titles better, because in like those little subtitles it says Jack, Halloween, Monster, Erotica. That should have been my clue. Because that is where I should have stopped and be like, nah, don't worry, I don't have to. But I kept going. So I read this book, and it's about this woman, and she is alone with Halloween. So she makes like a wish to kind of like this pumpkin, and she's like, oh, please get me a man for Halloween so I won't be alone. And like, poof, 3 seconds later, there is a man at the door with a pumpkin head, and he comes inside and he's like, hey girl, you want to taste some pumpkin syrup? Okay, I get that maybe for a certain type of person. No, never mind. I'm not even going to finish this sentence. This was trash. This was absolute trash. I hated this one so much. It was so gross. And he kept talking about the taste of his, because it was like pumpkin spice syrup. And now every time I drink a pumpkin spice latte, which was my favorite drink last year, I'm like, no, please, no. So I hated that one. I hated that one. So after that, I read Husky, which is a novella, and I think it was 100 pages too long, which is saying much because it was 110 pages. Yeah. So it's about this girl, and she's like a fashion designer, and she needs a model for her collection. She goes to this bar and she meets a man, and she's like, wow, he's chunky. That's like the first thing she says. She's like, he looks like a man. He's so chunky. He is so thick. He's so big. And I'm like, oh. And then they kind of develop a little relationship, and he's like, I'm not good enough for her because I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm fat. I was like, what is this? What is, and they do the deed for like 80 pages. I was like, where's the plot? Where is the plot? But it didn't have a plot. So, yeah. No. After that, I want to talk about Ice Planet Barbarians, because these books I hated, but I also could kind of understand why people like this. Not in a way like, oh, good for you, girl, you go like this. No, if you like this, that's screwed up. That is honestly screwed up. But I get it that you might like this one, because like at least the writing is semi-okay, I guess. The other books had like terrible writing. This one was just, it wasn't good. It wasn't enjoyable. It's about aliens and humans, like aliens banging humans. And I was like, whoa, what is this? I don't want to read about this. But other than that, it was quite okay, I guess. But yeah, I wasn't a fan of these books. Let me see if I have other books that I want to trash on. Oh my god, yeah. These two novellas, Scream for Us and Haunted Hearts. Oh my god. I read these for like a video with Halloween, which I didn't upload because it was just too painful to continue. But Scream for Us by Molly Doley. I'm scared that this one is actually published. Someone looked at this. They talked about it with a whole bunch of people, an editor, a cover designer. They talked about this and we're like, yeah, let's publish this. What? This is a novel about this girl, and it reminds me a bit of the Devil's Night series by Penelope Douglas, but like the absolutely rock bottom version of it. This is about this girl, and it is Halloween, and she goes with these guys, and I think someone touches her in like a club or a party, and he's like, let's chop off that man's hands out of nowhere. Like, they start killing people, and she's like, wow, that's so hot. I'm gonna date 4 guys. 4 guys. Why? And why did TikTok recommend this to me? Why? Yeah, and Haunted Hearts was kind of the same. It was also on Halloween, and this girl started murdering people, and then this other girl was like, that's attractive. What am I doing with my life that I talk about these kind of things? So yeah, those were my least favorite books of 2023, and I could probably tell a lot more books. I have some poetry things that I didn't like. I have some memoirs that I didn't like, but I don't feel like they deserve to be in this kind of list. This was like rock bottom. Like, you have, what's like a terrible book? You have like a terrible Colleen Hoover book around here. Those were like there on the floor somewhere, out of sight. Those were like my most horrible books. So yeah. Thank you so much for watching though, and I hope you won't have to experience the things that I had to experience with these books. So like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!